Hi everyone! Welcome to another episode of Nathan's 3D Factory. In this episode, what I'll be doing is I'm going to do a material selection in my geometry nodes. I'm in Blender 4.1 right now. We have the default cube, my default scene that I've set up. If I delete that, I'm going to do an add, mesh, circle. I'm going to change the radius to 30. I'm going to put the vertices at 16. Fill type I'm going to change to Ngon. And then I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to extrude by pressing E. And then we're going to take it up 100. Okay. Now I got that set up. I'm going to press Control R to make a few loop cuts. Okay. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the knife tool by pressing K. There we go. Now we have a knife cut on there. And that is going to be an area that I'm going to use for an island, where I'm going to make some material changes. So first of all, what I need to do is I need to set two materials in here. So I'm going to take the original material, which was on that default cube, and then I'll add another one. And by the way, I'm going to change this one to base. Actually, I'm going to call it boring base, just to make things a little bit more fun. And then I'm going to add a new material, and this one I am going to call awesome with an exclamation point. So why am I doing it? Because we want to have fun, right? I'm going to change this to a green material. I'm going to copy this so then I can see this in the viewport. Control V, there we go. And now I'm going to change to my face selection mode. 3. Okay. And then I'm going to take C and I'm going to select those faces that I just made in that island. Okay, escape from that. And now we're going to assign, and there we have a material selection. And then this is where the fun begins, right? So I'm going to tab out of edit mode, and we can do a few things with this, right? So I'm going to go into geometry nodes. I'm going to get a new node setup. So the first thing you'll see, obviously nothing happening, pretty boring. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say separate geometry. So now I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to take a selection here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the material as the selector. So material selection. You'll notice it disappears because we have no material applied to it. Now what I want to do is I want to have that going into the group input, because what I can do next is that I can take that material, awesome, and then we have our selection. Now the next thing that I can do is that I can say, alright, well, I'd like to have this as like something grouped here, right? So I can group these two together. I can say Control G. Okay. And I want this to be a face separate geometry, right? Because now, if I were to do this right here, I could say, all right, well, now I want to join geometry. Okay. And then I can do the inverted. There. Now, why is this so important? Why are we going to do something cool with this? Well, now we have some control over separate parts of our mesh. So on this, I can keep this, for example, where it's flat shaded, and this, or I could take it where it's smooth. So I can say add, shade, smooth. And then all of a sudden now, look at this. Now we have this where it's all shaded smooth. So, a couple other things we can do now are that we can add a nice little border to this so that we can separate these two items. And so I'm going to add mesh to curve. And then I had to do some things here to get this so that this mesh to curve would work right. So I realized if I was to do a separation between these materials, I had to do it with the original. So I tried constantly with this selection and it just didn't do it. But this one will do it, where we have this item first, and you're going to see something that it's not going to be exactly correct, and I'll show you why in a moment. Okay, so now we see that we have this grid that went onto it. Pretty cool, right? But I don't want that to have all the lines. I just want this line on the outside of it. And to do that, I'm going to add boundary. So we're going to do face group boundaries. And I'm going to put that in between material selection and selection on mesh to curves. And now you see that we only have that boundary right there. So, what do we do with that now? Well, now we make a really cool profile curve that we can put on there. So now to do a profile curve, we're going to take that mesh to curve that we made and do curve to mesh. Okay? And now, the profile curve, I'm going to do a curve circle. Now we have this really cool border on here. So now we separate our materials where we have a nice cool border, and we do some really fun things with that. We can also add a material to that by going back into here. We're going to say, oh, now I want a border material. Or we're going to call it border. Okay. There we go. All right. And then, let's see, I'm going to increase the value there. Make it a little more subtle there. Okay. Control C. Okay. Let's see, viewport display. I'm going to do that. And now, I'm going to say, all right, well, now I want to add that material. So I'm going to say material, set material. We're going to add it right there, and we're going to say border. Now we have that. Okay. And then what I can do is that since I don't need it here, I can just say, well, goodbye border, and it still shows up. So we still have it being used, and that's not going to affect anything where it's going to just disappear. So that's pretty cool. Now, within the selection, all we have is just this blank area that's smooth, right? Well, now we just want to have something that's going to be cool that we can do something with, you know? So, let's generate some points on here. So now what I'm going to do is that I am going to go onto this geometry. I'm going to say, all right, we're going to do points on bases. Distribute points on faces. Now I want the selection to be there. And I am going to add this to here. Now you see this big old cluster of points on here. Now I found that my density, I didn't like it so dense, shall we say. So I did say 0.5, and then I was able to do that. And make it just a little less messy. Now, on here, what I want to do is I'm going to make some instances on point. Instance on points. Okay. And now I'm going to add another instance here. And we're going to make an icosphere. Alright. We have that. You can see now we have these little jagged critters here. I want to increase the subdivisions. But here's another thing too. All these points are the same size, and I just don't want that. So I'm going to take these, and I'm going to put a random value on here. Now, you'll notice that all these are kind of like crazy, funky shapes here. So that's pretty cool. If you want to have random values that say, okay, well, I want these as vectors, but you know what? I want to keep the scale uniform on these. On how these are going to scale. But I still want these to be random sizes. So I'm going to change this to float. That way I can add a decimal value that's going to keep it uniform. Now, we put that value back into the scale socket. And now you see these different sized bubbles, whatever you want to call them, right? And so our minimum is at 0, our max is at 1. I want to keep the max at 1, but I'm going to put the minimum at 0.3, just to give you an idea there. So then, you can see that, you know, you can also like add the minimum values, subtract whatever you want there. So, just to give you that idea. So now you have a little bit more randomized. So pretty cool things where you can take a separate face where you can separate by a material and do some really awesome stuff with it. So anyway, I want to give you that tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope that you like, you subscribe, that you leave comments, and that you learn something from this. And I want to see what kind of cool stuff you've got. So let me know how you like this tutorial. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.